And we are live with ESL Open Cup Fueled by Dare number 20. And I'm Light_VIP, joined by a very special guest, Zepph.
Yo, what's up? I hear it's the 20th and possibly final cup, so kind of a good time to slip in here, I guess. 'Cause who knows if I'll get to cast another one.
Yeah. It's a bit unfortunate. It feels like we just started, and now we're already potentially at the end. We're here at number 20, but at least we got to get you into one of these.
Yeah. Got in there last minute. So pretty sick match for the first one of the day. Don't know how I feel about it being this early, but that is random seeding for you. Alrighty, well, we are on Death Aura, and in the top left, in the blue, it is the Protoss player, Probe.
And in the bottom right-hand corner of Death Aura LE, we have the Indian Zerg player representing Downfall Gaming. It is Demi.
Sure is. And, man, this is kind of like a cool timing for a cup as well. I'm not entirely surprised to see that some of the usual signups are missing as well, because of course on the weekend we actually have the next season of EPT starting up, so a lot of the games around this time are a little bit wacky because people don't really want to show their hand just yet. One thing I like about Demi though is that he kind of doesn't care. He likes strats, but he also is just like happy to play in anything, so you tend to get pretty good games out of him.
Yeah, it is a bit of a shame that the last EPT or the last ESL Dare tournament lines up with ANZ, and because of that, like, there are a lot of players that don't really want to sign up. They don't want to show anything off for the weekend because it's pretty important, especially for the region, that they perform as best they can, right, this weekend.
Yeah, I think Demi's a player that's like goes super ham on the preparation. So I don't think he's too fussed because he has like Albert Einstein level calculations about which build is going to be the best to defeat each potential opponent. And Probe streams a lot in general, and his playstyle on stream tends to be completely different from what he actually plays like in tournaments. So they both kind of carve themselves out a nice slice of playstyle where they can kind of comfortably play without showing too much of their hand. So hopefully it's fun. I mean, we'll see what happens. Usually games between these guys are pretty good, pretty macro heavy, I'd say. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, could have a shorter one in a cup.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see. I mean, if people want to want to see Probe, he is currently streaming his own POV. So not just him, but Pez as well. So unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to cover Pez at the moment. So if you want to tune into his game and how he's doing, he's also streaming over on Twitch. So yeah, just check them out. Whenever. Or to support the scene as best you can. And we do see that Probe, he is actually going for a Stargate opener here, which, I mean, recently we've seen he's a little bit more comfortable with. He's not really the kind like Pez to go for consistently like Twilight Council openings in this matchup.
Yeah, a lot of Protosses are still sitting on that good old adept strategy. Interestingly, to me, Probe hasn't really been that kind of guy. Historically, like, if you got a best of 5 or a best of 7, you'll probably see it once. But he's pretty happy to play kind of a little bit differently. So, yeah, I don't know how much this Oracle will do. Demi's already got his spores ready. Not in the natural just yet, but with Queens, you can kind of just micro around that because he definitely knows it's coming. Obviously, he's seen it. So, alright, he's actually going to go for a spot. I think it's always better to be safe, but that's that pro gamer move right there where you're like, you know what, I don't even need a sport. I'll do it without one. That's how good I am.
Yeah, we do see some players be kind of greedy like that, and they only get spores on their fringe bases, and they try to get away with it. And sometimes they do. Sometimes things kind of start snowballing out of control if the Protoss player manages to get in. So yeah, Demi kind of not really taking any chances, playing it kind of safe here against Probe. I mean, I don't blame him, right? It's Probe.
Yeah. And he's waiting for the double Oracle, which sucks for Demi because no matter what, he's going to get worker kills. One Oracle is usually in that territory anyway. Like, they'll get at least a little bit done. But with 2, you kill the drones that much faster. So even tanking the Spore, you can get a little bit of value there. And as long as those stay alive, you can keep doing that. Maybe even snipe a little bit of that creep down the track. But Probe at the moment is playing very much Probe style, heading into 3 bases, and now we'll see a bit more of that tech coming out from him.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see Probe go for that double Oracle style. You can, kind of mix it up a little bit. You can go triple Oracle, you can get a Phoenix out as well to deny scouting, but Probe didn't really opt for any of that. He isn't really concerned about, denying any Overlord scouting. And yeah, we do see Probe, he is kind of getting into that later mid-game setup with Blink as well as +1.
Yeah, he's been liking the Blink a little bit lately. See how he goes with that. I'm wondering if he'll actually pressure with that +1 and Blink coming in, or if he'll sort of play it safe. We've seen him go up into Robo a little bit more. But I mean, the world is his oyster as a 3-base Protoss. I feel like Demi, in most games, he's very happy to kind of never engage you and just macro and make the world's biggest army and then crush you with it. Mm-hmm. So often I'm like, oh yeah, like the Zerg's gonna be the guy reacting here. But I feel like no matter what his opponent's doing, Demi's got the same goal, just like build an empire and then just win.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I would say that the one difference with Demi is that, he really does love his Spire play, and when he does get like a decent amount of Mutalisk, then he can really start getting aggressive out on the map, as we do see the Spires on the way. But before it's done, we do see Probe coming in here with his Blink Stalkers.
+1's not quite finished yet, neither is Blink, so just some preliminary hits there while that wraps up in the production tab there. Seconds away. And just sort of positioning here, and this forces Demi into a bit of unit production when that Spire is finishing. As you pointed out, he does actually have space to make some mutas anyway, but it's better to kind of play it safe here and be like, okay, do I actually have enough to defend against this, and how much is he committing? Because if Probe is sitting up here warping in and warping in and warping in, then Demi likewise needs to be in that constant unit production to make sure he doesn't fall behind. However, Probe has evacuated that position now.
Yeah, and something that's interesting is that at the moment, Demi, he doesn't really have too much map vision at all. So yeah, we do see that he's currently going out there trying to see whether the army of Probe is still out there and whether he has to, focus on that army composition, or if he has a little bit of breathing room to finally get his Mutalisk underway, because he did invest in that Spire. But we do see instead he's droning up and he's actually going right into that infestation pit.
Yeah. He's just going to keep macroing up. I mean, his drone count is already up at about 8,000. But interestingly, like, Probe hasn't played too aggressively here either. He's gone for that Robo, so we'll start seeing that Warp Prism come in. Potential for some Morass with that as well. But he's just pretty chill, taking that 4th base as that Colossus tech starts to come out. And I feel like as much as he tends to play a little bit differently on stream sometimes, the Colossus has been a bit more of a token of his play lately.
Yeah, definitely. It's really nice how he, how he incorporates that into his army. And something that's interesting is that, again, Demi, he did invest into that Spire, but I imagine because of the amount of Stalkers that he saw, he thought maybe it's not the best idea to go Mutalisk right now. Like, the anti-air is, it's decent for Probe, as he is going into, he's actually going into Corruptors. Okay.
Yeah, so he can basically delete the Colossi pretty fast. And then you also have that sniping capability to just go straight for a Nexus here and there if Probe's out of position. But perhaps more importantly, because he's going straight into the Hive, that also opens up greater Spire tech. And because he's sitting around that 80 drone economy this whole time, that could be something that he can whip out that Probe isn't ready for, especially after a big counter blow. You've just defeated the army. What's the next step? Oh, how about some tier 3 tech?
Yeah, definitely. Like it's really nice that he's able to already take into that, and already Probe getting a kill there on the latest base of Demi. And to be fair, there's only one Colossus here. Demi already has a massive Corruptor count, so I don't know if Probe is gonna be able to do too much here.
No, Demi doesn't have Bane speed. That complicates things a little bit.
Do you think he just noticed as well? Like with the Banelings waddling in, he's like, oh my god, and just starts it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he's on creep, so it's not the biggest deal. Bane speed doesn't have to be researched right away by any means. Oh, nice kill there.
Yeah, that's the second time that's happened. Twice already Probe's killed that base, so Demi's having a hard time trying to expand. Actually really stubborn, continuing to go for that base, even though it's under threat by Probe. And yeah, extended thermal lands. It's about to finish up in a couple seconds, and there's a decent amount of force fields here.
Yeah, a little bit hard for Probe to actually close the gap here as he sort of walks into the surround that Demi has set up. But likewise, Demi's not really going to get the money hits on that army, I feel, with those Banelings. If you take the Banelings out of that force, it's actually tiny. There's a lot of supply wrapped up in those Corruptors, which are kind of like nothing units right now. But yeah. Am I lagging?
I think you're good. I think so.
Yeah, I'm seeing some stuttering. I'm hoping I'm not lagging the game. Anyway.
Yeah. As Demi is trying to engage this army again, the force fields are pretty good for Probe though, and there haven't been really many good Baneling connections, but all the Colossus did go down to the Corruptors, and now it's just Blink Stalkers.
Yeah, as bad as that looked for a second, if you got Blink Stalkers, you're a happy man as Probe, because you can micro those all day. There's about 50 of them on the field as a rough count, and so yeah, Demi's got to pull back here and remake a little bit. He's actually gone straight into Ultra, which sort of surprises me because I thought he'd actually make something of those Corruptors, because there were only ever like, what, 2, 3 Colossi? It's good to wipe them out, but then they're kind of like nothing units. So I guess he's going for the big T3 combo.
Yeah, you were mentioning it earlier, how after that engagement, like, sure, you know, both Colossus went down, but then there was a lot of dead supply in those Corruptors. And again, I'm also surprised that he's opting to go for these Ultras at the moment. Like, the army isn't quite there for Demi. At the same time, though, we haven't seen any other, like, reinforcements, just continuing to pump out gateway units for Probe.
Yeah, these Lings chasing down these Stalkers. Couple of Banes looking for some hits there, not too much cost efficiency available for them, and as these Ravagers come in, it's probably a little bit too much. He's going to head out of there as Probe continues to expand here towards the left, and this is nice because it's a position to fall back to, close to the side of the map that Demi's been trying to expand this whole time. He's still been denying that base, so they've been on even bases for quite a while now.
Yeah, again, I'm really surprised that Demi hasn't tried to expand to the top right. He's just continuing to try and expand here, even though that's where he's being pressured the most by Probe. But yeah, I mean, he may be able to situate himself here quite nicely. Again, decent Baneling connections, forcing Probe away. Again, still mainly a Blink Stalker army here for Probe.
Yeah, lots of maneuverability here. Still denying the creep, which is pretty cool as well. Gotta be a little bit careful with that Observer, it is going to go down. But yeah, it looks like behind this Probe is thinking about a much juicier army based in the sky. If you look at those upgrades popping in there in the production tab. And that's actually going to be pretty nice with a whole bunch of Ultras on the field, because last I checked they don't shoot up, so
yeah,
that'd be pretty helpful.
I mean, at least Demi does have a couple like leftover Corruptors as well, so he's not completely out of it. But oh my, as I say that, so many Corruptors just get taken out by the Stalkers.
Even so, Corruptors actually kind of suck against Void Rays because they're slow when they fire, kind of slowly. If you just get smacked in the face with a handful of Void Rays, you will lose a lot of them. So you see Demi continuing this skirmish here on the left side with the Stalkers. A lot of those are getting pretty bruised, and he's had to back right up to the shield batteries, Colossi, and some Templar there as well, and that should hopefully deter Demi for a little bit.
Oh, but at the same time, a really nice baneling run by was able to get into the third base of Probe. 24 probes went down throughout that entire thing. Sorry, fourth base. So yeah, despite that, Demi is able to deal some kind of economic damage to Probe. Finally, it feels like Probe has been, sitting quite nicely this entire game. Like his economy has been pretty, left alone. So yeah, nice that he was able to do that. And again, I don't know if Probe has actually scouted the Ultralisk yet, but yeah, I mean, as you said. Yeah, now you've seen it, and yeah, the carriers are going to do so nicely against this army.
Great focus fire here with the Stalkers. Getting a little bit fresh with those Lings. It's hard to kind of keep your trades good, but he's doing a great job of that so far. And I like that he's thrown the odd DT and the odd loaded charge lots into Demi's bases as well. I think that's key, because especially once you've taken a huge Baneling hit to the mineral line. Because ultimately Demi's army is maxed out. It's looking pretty thick with a few Cs there. He's got a lot of tier 3 available to him. He's getting the 3/3 upgrades in. So, well, I should say +3. The 3 carapace is a little ways off. But yeah, you got to kind of put a spanner in the works here, or Demi's just going to keep this really chunky army. He's going to be able to replenish it for infinity years. So I think he's done a good job so far at keeping Demi on 4 bases for as long as possible, but you kind of need a next step to that plan as well.
Yeah, I think something that's incredibly impressive as, okay, so Probe has actually seen this bathing run by, but oh god, it does manage to get in regardless, getting another decent amount of probes, getting into the 4th base as well at the same time. We saw the massive amount of banelings that Demi was morphing in. But what was really impressive is that Probe, like, he's been able to do so much with what feels like so little. Again, just Blink Stalkers, he's been going toe-to-toe with the entire army of Demi, with his beefy, thick army. And because of that, he's been able to, behind this, slowly build up that Skytoss army, and he hasn't even really revealed his hand.
Yeah, this is a good thing for Demi, because Probe rather, because he's playing into the fact that Demi never really wants to attack. See, as soon as he gets close to that base, he's like, nah fam, I don't really want that. So he's going around, he's throwing banelings into the mineral lines, which is all great. These corruptors are going to go zap a Nexus or something here. That's actually a little bit concerning, because now he's going to see the double Stargate, and that carrier will pop out right in his face.
Oh my god, but the Void Rays are already here, and we were talking about it earlier, right? Like, corruptors are not really what you want against Void Rays.
No, and he actually does have to reveal his air army for that. So maybe now it's closer to go time for Probe. Demi's kind of massing up a little bit more bravely on the left there. And that's pretty cool. A couple of contaminations there on those Stargates. So Probe doesn't quite get to max out on the army that he wants before Demi figures out what's going on. But he's got the makings of something pretty beastly here.
Yeah, like, Probe, he didn't get to max out, but is it too late already? Like, Probe, he put a lot of time before revealing all of the Skytoss army, and now Demi knows, and again, like, he's remaking Corruptors, which Corruptors, they're okay, they're not ideal. Again, you really need to incorporate, like, Vipers or some of the other spellcasters into this army of Demi.
Well, he only has 5 carriers out at the moment, and so that's actually not a scary number. If you've got that many Corruptors out, you can deal with that pretty quick. That's 17 Corruptors. I mean, you just need some target fire and not take the storms to the face. Looks like these Stalkers are finally reaching the end of their utility as well.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, I'm sure at some point Probe wanted to get rid of them to free up a bit of supply for those carriers. But yeah, I feel like they pretty much paid for themselves. They did a lot this game already. So yeah, just really well done by Probe. And now he's now pushing out. He's establishing another base as well. And he's just right next to Demi. Like, their bases are just right next to each other. Yeah,
he's playing a super turtley style. It's kind of cool. Against someone like Demi, who's kind of like a sit back and macro guy himself. These little run-bys from Demi are super annoying, and Probe doesn't really have a good answer to it. 1, because he's usually pretty capped out on supply, and 2, because it kind of doesn't matter how much static defense you put in, they're going to chew through it. He's not really going to be sending an air army over there to defend it unless he desperately needs to. So, yeah, really well done from Demi to keep this up.
Yeah, it's really cool how these DTs are being incorporated in the defense, and here we go now. Probe is pushing out once again, killing this base of Demi. Again, Demi's still in 4-base economy because of that. He is finally established, like, expanding to the top right, which is nice. I really appreciate that, and actually manages to save the majority of his drones. I say that, but they're kind of in a rough position.
Oh, wrong way, little
Oh, God.
fellas. Oh, no. They've been imprisoned. Well, rip those drones. Yeah, this is actually a scary army now for Probe because not only does he have the carriers, while it's not huge numbers of carriers by themselves, you got Archons underneath that and you got Storms. So getting close to them is actually the big challenge there. They have a lot of damage output before you're able to actually finish those off. Plus, of course, there's, I don't know how many Void Rays is that was the unit tab. 4 Void Rays? It looks like more than that actually. But, you know, there's something to take into consideration as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think another thing is also Demi's drone count. Like, he doesn't have a massive bank like Probe does. So Demi, again, like losing that base, it does kind of matter for him. Like, he doesn't really have too great of an economy, I should say. So yeah, if Probe continues to do this, like Demi's going to struggle to continue to max out.
Yeah, Demi's slowly getting bullied off of this side of the map. He's continuing to bully Probe, as I say that, by taking out more and more workers. But at the end of the day, Probe has 73 workers to the 51 of Demi. He's going to be the one able to She's starting to work on a bank. Demi's actually a little bit mineral starved. The gas bank is looking pretty nice, though. And look at all those storms. Oh my god. That's like 80 storms. Now, it is too much for Probe. He gets a little fresh there and he has to recall home. But a lot of damage was dealt to that army. And so far, Probe is still managing to be a bit more cost efficient than his opponent.
Yeah, definitely. Even counterattacking with a bunch of DTs, 26 more drones go down. Demi's down to 25 workers. Like, he's basically got one base mining at the moment. Yeah, and he's just really struggling to remake his army. Finally, I love this. He's starting to incorporate a couple of Vipers, 3 Vipers on the way, and that'll help a lot. But I don't know if it's a little bit too late. Like, Demi right now, he just needs to buy some time to get a couple more bases and drone up a little bit to be able to fight the army of Probe. But Probe, he's already maxed out.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't quite notice where Demi actually started to drastically lose this game.
Yeah.
He just, like, the bases got cleaned up. He wasn't expanding as fast as I suppose I expected him to.
Yeah.
I guess Probe's harassment makes that tricky as well, because you try and take a hatchery and a few charge lots will deny that completely. Rip that upgrade, not gonna happen. But yeah, I guess Probe getting this army that he was looking for with a lot of splash and a fair bit of damage output also complicates things, because Demi really, all he was really doing was running lings into worker lines. So that's not really enough at the end of the day, unless you're doing like insane damage and your opponent can no longer fund an army.
Yeah, and I also don't know if I really agree with how Demi like teched up this game. Like, he got his greatest fire really early on. He never really incorporated Brood Lords. He got Ultraless Cavern, but the Ultras, they didn't really do much either. So yeah, his army composition just isn't really ideal. And the Greatest Spire got sniped earlier. The Ultraless Cavern was sniped as well. Like, this is kind of all he has.
Some really nice bombs on those air units, though, making things a little bit softened up, and the Corruptor's making short work of a couple of those units, but with the carriers, you got a targeting, the Void Ray's still alive, and on a 36 worker economy, it's just still not enough.
GG. Oh my god. And even towards the end of that fight, we saw like a bunch of Lings and Ultras on the ground. Like, they couldn't really do too much, right? Like, we saw earlier on Demi, he got that Ultras Cavern, and what did he really do with it? Like, he was kind of being defensive, like he was fighting stalkers with them, and that's kind of it. And that's like really expensive. Like, it all kind of came into play, right, with his low economy and, you know, investing so much money into things that didn't really pay off.
It was just a solid macro game from Probe, really.
Yeah.
Sits back, bullies him the entire time with Blink Stalkers, but never really commits to a big attack, and sort of zones him out from expanding. And I guess that's really all you need if you're going for that big endgame army and your economy's looking good. It is sort of one of those scenarios where the ball's in the Zerg's court to figure out how to deal with that, because that's a complex army to dismantle. I'm maybe a bit more of a fan of doing some abducts and continuing those backstabs and stuff, because he never really got to engage that army too much, maybe a couple of times in terms of the one with the actual carriers in it, but by then it was like a little bit too late.
Yeah, by then we were like 17 minutes into the game. It's like
yeah.
And at the same time, it also did feel like Demi was being pretty stubborn. Like he kept trying to expand towards his opponent, and it took him a really long time to finally take that top right base and even more, right? He didn't really have too many hatcheries throughout that game, even though he wasn't really being harassed that much, right? Like Probe was kind of chilling. He was kind of trolling.
Yeah, he was just having a chill time, man. Hanging out with his shield batteries, you know? So, yeah, that's an interesting look at that style of play for Demi as well. Because, again, he never really engaged Probe unless he had to. It was a lot of floating around, trying to get in those mineral lines, maybe sending the Corruptors for a snipe. And otherwise, he's just holding Probe off. He's not actually getting in there and being like, no, you fight my whole army now. And so when your opponent plays a similar style, I think it becomes a little bit interesting because maybe those usual tactics aren't working as well as they might against someone who was more out on the map in a forward position, always looking for damage, always trying to hit timings.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that said, I mean, that's kind of Demi's style, right? He's happy to play that late game.
I was about to say that it could be, as you were saying, like kind of almost a clash of styles where Demi, he's very much used to someone like Pez, someone who's a Protoss player who's very aggressive, like always going for these timings and pushing into you. So Demi, maybe he was kind of expecting that, and Probe was just giving him none of that. Just, dancing with his Blink Stalkers, and that was kind of it. So yeah, Demi.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty cool first game, but we'll see if he can bring it back perhaps here in the second game. It's Ice and Chrome, so I don't know, man. That's a pretty big map. Anything could happen. And this is the man in question in the bottom left in the red. His name is Demi.
And spawning in the top right-hand corner of Ice and Chrome LE, we have the Australian Protoss player representing Legacy Esports. It is Probe.
Probably not a bad map for Stargate again, if that's your vibe. Otherwise, you got like infinite space in here. Proxy it, do it. Why not? ESL Cup number 20. Let's go.
Right? I think you were talking about how like big this map is, and I'm kind of surprised that Probe, he played the way he did on Death Roll maps, a map where you can really be more aggressive, especially because of those speed zones, like and the way the map is laid out. It is a lot like thinner and smaller compared to like Eternal Empire or Ice and Chrome. But despite that, he was able to make that totally Protoss style work. And I imagine it's going to work even better on a map like this.
Yeah, I guess the one upside for a player like Demi is there's infinite paths to backstab your opponent with. So you got a lot of places you can run around, a lot of bases you can deny. Your opponent has to be pretty on top of things. I guess that works for both players though. Like if you're doing something like a whole lot of charge lot run bys or War Prism harass, same thing, you got more things to keep tabs on. But yeah, we'll see what the tech choices are here, and if we're gonna see another longer game, because sometimes it can sort of mind game you, like the caster curse as soon as you're like, oh, Ice and Kern's gonna be a long one, and then someone all-ins and you look like an idiot. That can always happen.
Yeah, that happens to me. That happens the most on Eternal Empire, like because that's the biggest map in the map pool. Very often we see players cheese on that because it's kind of metagamey where your opponent opens up incredibly greedy because they think that you're also going to open up incredibly greedy. So we see like a lot of 12 pools, a lot of all-ins because of that, and it's weird how that's kind of shifted how the map gets played out because it used to be more macro, but because of that, then people cheese on it as well. It's interesting.
Yeah. I think it depends what you're comfortable with as well, right? Because if, for example, Eternal Empire is like the one map that Terran's mech on. So if you don't like playing against mech, it's time to whip out that all-in build. And for sure, ZVZ ends up being a bit of a knife fight on pretty much any map. So
yeah,
who knows? But I think Ice and Chrome can equally kind of turn out that way sometimes. But to me, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to a single style as much as some other maps will. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. Probe is sliding on into that Stargate tech once more.
Yeah, again, we'll see if he goes to that double Oracle style again, or if he, puts a Phoenix in there, maybe triple Oracle. There's a couple of different ways to play this out. Yeah, there we go, 2 Oracles. All right.
Double trouble. Yeah, Demi once again is going to have full read on this because Probe's not shy about his Stargate choices. He's rallies out right up to where the Overlord is because killing that's more important. You deny what the follow-up's going to be, and that can be pretty important depending on what you're going for. In Probe's case, a lot of the time it's just a third base and macroing up as he usually would. Some people like to drop a Twilight and go for a later Adept timing. Some people go for an all-in. Some people go heavy on the Charger. There's a lot of different options. We don't see a lot of them as much. I feel like macro is very much the thing if you're not going for Adepts, but yeah.
And I was actually going to point out when you were listing off the possibilities, you could even throw down a second Stargate, and there we go. He's going for a double Stargate opener as well as triple Oracles. I imagine this is for more Mass Phoenix, but I mean we have seen Mass Oracle work before. I don't know if Probe is that kind of player though.
Out of all the things Probe could have done, God. I wouldn't have picked it to be this.
And he's making more Oracles. Oh boy.
I guess he has been playing a little bit more Stargate lately. I wonder if he's just warming up for that potential patch where they're gonna make the Void Rays heap sick. I don't know, but yeah, this is just something that I wouldn't attribute to Probe's normal playstyle, and that's a pretty good scout from Demi. He is the guy that goes for Overlord speed.
Yeah, he is, and unfortunately Demi, he is lagging a little bit, but as we were pointing out, it's so important that Demi was able to go in there and scout with that Overlord, and that's also why typically as a Protoss player you open up Stargate and you get a Phoenix out to try and clear out all the Overlords before you throw down that second Stargate. Pro being a little bit more ballsy, just making nothing but Oracles, and yeah, I haven't seen this too often, and Demi, I mean, he did scout it.
But the Oracle's already here. Wait, zap it. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is an older style, and it was around for I want to say 1 to 2 months max before it was kind of not as good anymore. People finally started to work out how to beat it, because when it first burst onto the scene, people were this is the most ridiculous, gimmicky, cheesy build I've ever seen in my life. Oracles do way too much damage, and if you've never faced it before, you're kind of scrambling. You're wait, more queens is not the answer, huh? So yeah, when you haven't faced it in a while, you lose that sort of automatic response that you might have once had.
Yeah, definitely, and as we see with this amount of Oracles, you can just target down a base, and okay, he does cancel. It would have been disastrous if he actually lost that, but yeah, Probe, he's gonna be able to do quite a bit with this. Demi though, he does have a decent queen count. I don't know if that's enough to really combat this amount of Oracles, but Probe, he's already working on that next step as well.
Yeah, more queens help for sure, and he's got creep spray between all his bases, so you can waddle around. I think the only problem with the queen defense is that they're kind of slow, so if he drops by somewhere that Demi is not, he can potentially do a lot of damage. But as it stands, he's got a nice little spot here where he can kind of stand in the middle of all 4 bases and have a reasonably quick walk to whichever one he needs to defend.
Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised Probe hasn't been more aggressive with these Oracles. He has a decent amount of them, and so far he's really just denied that base. I would have assumed he would have just dove into a mineral line, ignored the spore that was there and just killed as many workers as he can. At the moment, he's being, he's just containing his opponent, looking for some kind of opening, but hasn't really gone for anything yet.
Yeah, I guess if you're Demi and you're usually looking for those backstabs, that's kind of off the table at the moment because there's so many Oracles that you're just going to be super cost inefficient. He also doesn't have a whole lot of vision. So with this small attack coming up, you'll notice he has a few units out already. I think it's probably enough to deal with this. but it's not the most ideal position to engage into because one, there's a few force fields available, and two, there's approximately 48 stasis wards on the ground.
Yeah, really interesting how Probe is utilizing these oracles. He's not going in there to try and focus down Ravagers or Queens. He's actually using them for stasis traps. I mean, this is great. I actually haven't seen this before. We'll see how this does here and how Demi ends up engaging this army, or if he even can.
I mean, if you can keep peeling off the queens, that's your anti-air gone. That's it. So you can potentially then use those oracles to come in and do some DPS. Behind this, Probe is still going with his usual plan of trying to tech up a little bit more, getting charge, more upgrades, getting the Colossus Den. So you have a few options here. But look at him just trigger trap after trap. That's going to be so frustrating.
Yeah, he's slowly inching his way forward, getting rid of these traps. But as I say that Probe, he's laying down more behind his army. So yeah, this is I don't know what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
This is just eventually he will run out of traps.
I mean, really? I don't know.
Probably doesn't feel that way to Demi, that's for sure. Yeah, I do have a mild concern though that as cool as this is for Probe, Demi is still kind of getting out of control with his macro. He's still getting what he wants, which is that huge economy, lots of bases, decent creep spread. He's already on Hive getting Vipers. So while Probe probably has a bit of an advantage in the upgrade department, his tech, I feel, is only just starting to kick into gear now. It's not quite going to be up to par with Demi just yet. He's really relying on the mobility of this force and not having to do a big engagement, rather just being an annoyance over everything else.
And I love how Demi's adapted from game number one. Like, we do see Vipers coming out a lot earlier, and they're going to help out in so many different ways, whether it's picking off high-tech units or just helping with blinding clouds in the overall engagement. He is still going for that Ultralisk Cavern, but a little bit later. We'll see how he incorporates that as well. And, you know, we saw that he's expanding Probe. He's having a harder time denying the bases, as instead he's focusing his army here in the center of the map.
Yeah, for sure. And the nice thing about having Infinity Oracles is it actually makes it quite difficult for Demi to have a full-on engagement. Now, he comes in and he gets some good blinding clouds there, but a lot of his army gets frozen, so he's actually only having to engage about half of it at a time. The Biles focusing on the force fields more than the Stalkers. A few will come down now. And Probe does need to be a little bit careful that he doesn't get sandwiched between two bits of the army once it unfreezes. But aside from that, look at this. He's just taken a great trade.
Yeah, this is great how he's done this. Like, normally you see Protoss players utilize force fields to cut their opponent's army in half, but this time he uses stasis instead, and it worked quite well. Like, he was just able to dismantle the army of Demi, snipe off a couple of Vipers as well. Demi, he still has 2 Vipers left, so he can potentially, you know, abduct that Colossus, but again, these Blink Stalkers are just doing so well for Probe.
Yeah, and suddenly this is snowballed out of control. He's going to get a base here. There's a lot of Bane Ravager coming in. Nice blinding clouds there from Demi as well. Gets the Colossus, but at the end of the day, there's still a fairly formidable force here. And he's still trading decently well here. He's gotten the better end so far. He's going to make sure not to overstep, but it looks like he's definitely committing here. He's still got 4 bases being quite comfortably mined, and this time Demi hasn't really had the opportunity to run around the corners and start picking off that work account of Probe.
Yeah, he's had to have everything here on the defensive, and a lot of that is because, like, potentially the Banelings that would want to go across the map were all stasis, and now, oh my god, he's even going to snipe the Spire! Wow, that's going to inhibit any kind of, like, anti-air that Demi wants. Like, I don't think he even has any Corruptors, to be fair.
This is ridiculous. These oracles are just not challenged. They have the biggest... I don't know what your language filter is on this stream, but I'll say big stick energy right now because they just can't be stopped. They just walk around like they own the place.
It's great. It's beautiful. But Demi, he finally has like he's incorporating his Ultralisk into his army as well. Like his ground army is still looking quite formidable. But again, like he did lose a base earlier. His Viper count got reset. And there's nothing really stopping these oracles. Like yeah, they can just fly around, do whatever.
Yeah, he's getting zapped. These poor ultras just getting focused down, much like we saw in the last game. The Carapace, looking at those upgrades, there's +2 coming along, but it's not exactly finished. 3-3 with Carapace is a lot more formidable than just the vanilla ultra version, I suppose you could say. And Demi is just kind of rolling around Morphin Banes. He hasn't really been able to escape. Now he's going to try and move forward there a little bit, but as soon as he does, Probe appears once again, just barely on the creep here. He's going to be able to clean that up and continue to put pressure on Demi.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, it has taken Probe a lot longer to transition into that Skytoss army, only just now throwing down his Stargates and his Fleet Beacon. So, I mean, there is an opportunity here for Demi to win the ground engagement. Like, he is pushing on forward. There's only one Immortal, and it already goes down, but at the same time, all the Ultras have already gone down for Demi. Oh, the Viper!
Viper! Rip. GG. Wow. That is some unique play from Probe.
Oh my god! You know what? I kind of hope we see a little bit of that in ANZ Champs. I've never seen that before, and it works so well against Demi of all people.
Yeah, Probe is deceptively versatile. He practices and he prepares like anyone else, but I think maybe because he memes a lot on stream, he's recently started doing like a thing where chat chooses his strategies and stuff. It does kind of open new doors for you to mess around, have fun, and maybe accidentally find something that works better than you feel like it should. Because just kind of like messing around, not really intending to be getting mad MMR on the ladder at that point in time.
Do you think that was a chat suggestion?
I mean, I still have his chat open. I can scroll through and find out.
Oh my god, that was great. Yeah, again, I've never really seen that happen or seen a Protoss player do that, and for it to work so well, like even if it was like something that he was just kind of messing around with. Again, we were talking about how some players they're hiding their real builds, right? This week because of ANZ Champs. So yeah, it's possible that he may have not have done something too serious, thinking like because he's a game ahead, right? Like do something kind of crazy, and it's like, oh hey, it worked out. Like that was great.
Yeah, it's hard to say because Probe sometimes he's like closing the chat and he's like, all right, concentrate, it's time to be serious. But other times he's like, hey guys, press 1 in the chat if I should cannon rush, so like you never know which Probe you're gonna get.